This week we are going to be working with databases. So you're going to be learning more about entity framework. So this is just kind of a introduction to entity framework. So you get an idea of what it does. And we will be revisiting entity framework again. And I believe it's in chapter 12. Um, so we're going through it now, and we will be reviewing and adding on to what we know when we get to that later chapter in the course. So you're going to be reading chapter 4, and you're going to be going through this lecture demo. And there is a video that covers this entity framework core overview in the first hands-on. And Entity Framework is an object relational mapping program. Uh, it's an add-in for Visual Studio, and it lets us basically connect to a database. So we can take our classes that we create in our model folder, and we can actually generate database tables from them. And that's called Code First. There is another approach that allows us to take an existing database project, and from that existing database, it kind of does reverse engineering. It generates the models from the existing database. It will generate the models, the controllers, and the views. We get into using database first later in the course. So today is about using code first, and we're going to keep it very simple. So we kind of start with an overview of entity framework and the code first approach, the different steps that you need to take when you are using it. Okay, so you'll read about all of that, and then you're going to download a project out in GitHub, and you're going to be adding Entity Framework to it, because by default, Entity Framework is not going to be in your applications. Okay, and so then we go through all of the different parts of Entity Framework that you're going to need to code in your MVC application in order to generate the database and to get everything wired correctly so it works. Okay, so you need to complete all of the hands-on, and there are videos that go with all of them. And then when we get to the bottom, you are going to basically add a model to the project you created last week. And this can be used for your term project, but I only want you to create one model. I don't want you to do multiple models, because um, it's really important that you get the foreign keys correct, or it kind of breaks things. So we are only going to do one, but that will give you practice on this whole process. Okay, so these are the instructions for creating a model and then doing the migrations and getting that database table. So what you're going to need to turn in is the movie list app, and that one is going to have 2 tables in it. And then your own app is only going to have one. Okay, and these are the different components that you should have in that app. In case some of you need a little review of the link queries, I did include a link to that. And in Entity Framework, we use the link queries in the controller, and it is how we basically retrieve data from the database And it's also how we add data or delete data. We're using link queries for all of that. So I've got a link here to review the material from the 195 class. I've also got a link out here to Entity Framework documentation in case any of you want to review that. So if you run into problems this week, please let me know. Sometimes it is a little tricky working with databases. I think most problems that you guys could encounter, I have either encountered them myself or I've had students encounter them. So don't hesitate to ask for help and have a great week.